Anime. What the fuck? You know, I don't often talk about anime. It's not really my thing. It used to be. I used to like it a lot. It's not to say I don't like it still. There's plenty of shows that I enjoy. All of Ava, Kill la Kill, One Punch Man, parts of Death Note, Beastars. You know, there's good shows. There are some good shows. However, a friend of mine texted me, was it last night? Maybe it was last night. I can't remember now. But she texted me and she said, "Hey, have you seen this film?" And I said, No, I haven't. And she said, "It's a bit disturbing, but I think you might like it." And then I Googled the film. This is the moment when I realized I should have done research first before I started recording because I completely forgot the name of it. So I just found it. The movie was called Shōjo Tsubaki, starring... Well, it's not starring anybody technically because it's an animated thing. But the main character is called Midori. It's a little girl. And I Googled the film, and obviously I found it on YouTube. It's fully available on there, and it's only about an hour long. So I thought, what the hell, I'll watch it. But before I did that, as I Googled it, I found out that it gained popularity through TikTok because there were people reacting to the gruesome parts of it. And they're labeling it as the meanest anime they've seen, or the cruelest anime they've seen, or the most disturbing, or the goriest, even though there's not that much gore in the film to begin with. Reaction channels are just the plague. They're the equivalent to the Black Plague, apart from a few notable examples being Lost in Vegas and all the really cool music people that react to things and actually give insight to the reactions and don't just go, you know, when they react and they somehow accrue millions and millions of views and subscribers, and for some reason they accrue a lot of Patreon support, which is the most confusing part. But you know, who am I to know? I'm just another white guy on the internet who's just shouting at a screen that nobody's going to watch. So regardless of what I'm about to say, Shōjo Tsubaki is actually a good film. It's not incredible. It's not the most profound cinematic masterpiece, but it has some good parts to it that I would wish to explore right now. Yes, this is sort of a review, or maybe it might be more of a video essay. I'm not even 100% sure what it's going to be. No, I'm not going to play sappy music in the background. Right, there's some sappy music in the background, which I made. It's not, YouTube can't get me for that. I made the music, me. But what I'm saying here is the movie is an exploration of a certain character that is part of it, obviously, and the situation she gets herself in, or rather the situation she is put in through her life circumstances, so to speak. And yes, it has its disturbing parts, but it's more profound, and it's to be fair, it's more of an art film than it is a horror film, even though that's what it's labeled as. I've not read the manga, I've not seen the live action. The live action looks pretty cool though. However, I am going to concentrate on trying to analyze the main subject of this video, which is the animated slideshow film that we're going to talk about, which is Shōjo Tsubaki, or Midori, according to this poster that I'm looking at. And the movie is weird because it starts off with right, so it's set in the 80s, I believe, in Japan. It came out in the early 90s, and it's only gotten popularity now thanks to fucking TikTok and the plague that is reaction channels who go, "This is so disturbing." It's got its disturbing parts, but have you people watched anime ever? Because there's disturbing parts in every facet of anime. Have you watched Akira? Or parts of, I mean, the whole first series of Evangelion, or anything? Have you watched the Satoshi Kon film? because those are fucked. If you watch Jinro the Wolf Brigade, there's plenty of examples of fucked up things that happen in anime. And for those that are going to jump at me and go, you don't understand or appreciate anime culture, fuck off. Take your pimple-ridden ass and take it back to the basement. Because yes, I'm not the biggest enjoyer of anime, but I can appreciate the culture and still respect it and understand it instead of asking where the subtitles are. Anyway, so the movie is set in the 80s. It stars Midori. I think she's about 12 or something along those lines. And it starts off with her selling flowers under a bridge in a very sad spot, clearly in a bit of a sad spot in her life. She's still in school. She's talking about a field trip, and she's trying to get money for that field trip. And a man sees her, and he's like, hey, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be selling here, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I'm not selling you flowers today. I'm trying to sell my flowers. And before that, we get a little monologue of her explaining which flower is which and what they symbolize and whatnot. Yes, there is a lot of symbolism in this art film. Go figure. But what I'm saying is, the man buys all the flowers from her and asks her, where are your parents? She's like, my father's away. So we have part number one of this analysis. Absent father. And 2, her mother is sick. We don't know what she's sick from, but we know that she's sick. So she goes home to say, hey, Ma, sold the flowers, we can eat. And it turns out that her mother is dead. And she has been mauled by rats. And I'm not going to show the scene, because there's plenty of people that have reacted to it. But what I'm saying is, the symbolism of that scene is that it's just a shot of the mother's nether regions with a bunch of rats around them, and there's a lot of blood. And don't get me wrong, there is disturbing parts in this film, but they're not the main focus of it. So turns out the man that bought the flowers off her is the guy that runs the local fairground, like the freak show, traveling freak show that goes about places. And he then proceeds to adopt her because he bought her, basically. And the first thing that happens once she joins the freak show, you expect this little heartwarming Cinderella story. No, she just gets gang raped by all the freaks. Yeah, it's not pretty, but it makes sense in the context of the story, and I'll get to it when we get through the summary of the film. What I'm trying to say is, it doesn't start well for our little Midori. But for whatever reason, she stays with the freak show, and we don't even know why. And she endures a lot. Turns out that it's a weird freak. It's a man with a disfigured face and no arms. It's a big, strong man. It's a whore. It's a little transgender child who looks like a girl but has a peen. It's the guy that's in charge of him, who is completely passive throughout the whole thing and barely contributes anything. There's this disfigured person who's very, I think it might be like a cerebral palsy thing. I'm not 100% sure. There's a man who has no arms and no legs. I might be forgetting people, but regardless, go watch it for yourself if you want to. I'm not saying you should. I'm analyzing it as it is, and I'm probably going to spoil all the big plot points, but if I'm analyzing it, I'm going to have to spoil them. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't start off well for her, and then it progressively starts getting worse as she is horribly mistreated and used as an object by all these people. Then it comes to the point where, there's a dog stomping scene. Nice. However, then a magical dwarf man, joins the crew, who is just a magician, and he's a hypnotist. And that gets shown off later on because people are trying to play it off as magic, but he's just hypnotizing them, is what he's doing. And it's the visual trickery that he does, and it's people think they see one thing, but in fact there's something else completely going on. So she falls in love with him, which again is an incredibly weird thing, because the only thing they got going in common is that they're the same height. Things start getting better for her. Things start picking up. She becomes more positive, more happy. She's probably getting laid, even though she's young. Although the passage of time isn't very clear. She proceeds to become happier and more accepting of those around her, and becomes the dwarf's assistant, accompanying him to his magic tricks and showing off in front of people, and he gets in a bottle and he does these weird tricks. Anyway, there's a point where the other patrons, or not the other patrons, but the other members of the freak show are not happy with how happy she is, and they mistreat her again, which causes her to run off away from the freak show for a bit. One of them comes to apologize to her, and because we have the very jealous dwarf, he ends up killing him. Obviously, the other people don't know, the other people that are part of the freak show, and she becomes freaked out from it, from the dwarf killing the man, and she tries to run away again, which causes the dwarf to have a massive freak out during one of his performances, which is another hope not be disturbing scene, and again, that one was actually pretty well animated, considering there's barely any animation in this film. I'll get to why, but he has the freak out, and then he comes to terms that he should calm down and he should go find Midori and be very much nicer to her, and they should run away together, because that's what she wanted from the very beginning of the film. She wanted to run away. She wanted to get away from this, and she wanted to go back home. So she decides to run away with the dwarf. She's very content now with everything. She's being very nice to everybody that leaves. Even the little girl, is actually a boy, cuts his hair? His? I don't know. But becomes more accepting of the fact that, they're a boy now. So as her and the dwarf go to leave, he's like, wait here for me at this bus stop while I go pick up some apples for you, or, buy you some food so you're not hungry, so you're more happy, which leads to the dwarf getting shanked in the street, which then she ends up chasing after him, trying to find him, and it becomes a massive spiral of her trying to circle around this town and not being able to find a way, and constantly ending up back at the same spot. And then the movie ends. Very anticlimactically. Right, so this is going to be the whole analytical part of the video, which, don't get me wrong, can get a bit boring, but this is also all my opinion, so it might not be 100% true unless you speak to the author who is behind making the film, and he made all the cells, all the paintings, and all the animation. The artwork in this film is great. But starting from the beginning, we get a bunch of horrible imagery of what goes on in the fairground, and it already talks or alludes to Midori's fractured psyche, because she has an absent father and a mother who's very sick, so she's the one who's having to take care of the household. And she's also exposed to all these horrible, horrible things that go on, at the fairground. So after this man buys the flowers from her, we see her leaning on him. So basically she is craving for a father, and she's craving for that fatherly touch. And when we find out that the mother's dead, and the whole symbol of the rats around her nether parts, it becomes a symbol for her getting ravaged a bit later on in the film, by all the other freaks who basically do the same thing that the rats did to her mother, except to her, which begins the downward spiral of her wanting to go home, but it's more of a, I guess, more of a Stockholm thing of, do I want to go home or do I not? My camera just went off, but it's back. It's back now. So the shot looks a bit different. Whatever. Right, so we get the puppy stomping scene, but that's when we find out that the little girl is actually a boy. And it gives this painting of Midori also having a peen, but in fact she doesn't have a peen. But it's a symbol, and it's an allegory for the fact that maybe one of the reasons why her dad is now gone, or gone away as she puts it, is because maybe daddy wanted a boy. Because even later on in a dream sequence we see him munching on a cucumber. So there's a high chance Midori was both abused by her dad, and maybe her dad just wasn't happy with her because she wasn't a boy. And that's part of her struggle within herself. It's even because doesn't even have a girly haircut. It's very short. It's a bit of a bowl cut, which is not uncommon for boys to have. But it's the whole idea of she's facing her demons and she's coming to grips with who she is as a person. Because not only has she been deflowered by a bunch of freaks, she also maybe kind of sort of wishes she was a boy because that's why her dad left, maybe. I don't know, it's my opinion. So when the dwarf eventually shows up, don't get me wrong, he's also much older than her, so I'm not sure how that sort of relationship is supposed to work, the whole dichotomy of it, but she falls in love with him. And all he says throughout the whole time, apart from I love you, is that he is going to take care of her. And that leads to her trusting him and coming to grips with the fact that she now has that sort of male figure in her life that isn't absent and is always there for her. Because clearly she didn't get that from her dad. And even the person who was the initial father figure, who was the groundskeeper, he becomes absent the moment he buys her. He's kind of there, but he never stops the freaks from doing things to her or anything like that. As in, he never stops the world itself from being mean to his daughter, which is my dad's gone and this is how I'm coping with it sort of thing. So when the whole dwarf thing happens and she starts mistrusting him again, it brings back horrible memories about her dad, and it just comes to a point where she is out of it again and she doesn't want to be anywhere near him. But because she still yearns for that fatherly or love from an older man and the appreciation from that, she goes back to him eventually. And he then proceeds to hypnotize her and makes her relive some memories with her parents and going back to her old town. And afterwards, when he gets killed, the movie ends with everybody that she was around, all these freaks, laughing at her. It's heartbreaking to say the least, or gut-wrenching, or call whatever you want to call it. And I feel like it's the most disturbing part of the film, because the disturbing scenes aren't exactly disturbing if you look at the context, instead of going, duh! But here's the thing. Theory, it's all in her head. The whole thing. After her mother dies, the rest of it is in her head. Because she's lost her mind. Because her father's gone, and the last memory she has of her mother is being half-eaten by rats. Which then translates to everything else that happens afterwards in the film. With her psyche fracturing and, her trying to cope with the reality she's left to live in. And the only reason why her psyche immediately goes to the fairground is because she's exposed to it every day. She's seen these people before. But she's so traumatized by the fact that her mother's dead and eaten by rats that it breaks her psychologically and leaves her, I guess, in some sort of we never see what stage she's in, actually. But she goes through all the stages. I'm not sure how the stages of grief go, but she goes through all those stages. The depression and the bargaining and all that craziness. And just when she begins to be happy again, she spirals down again and gets lost in her own head. And by spiral down, I mean it's almost literal in the way it's presented, as her going back to the burned down part of the town and going through the same loop, which is a very good hint as to her not being sane and her being lost in her own head. So the passage of time even is convoluted, and it just comes down to her trying to find her place, but being completely incapable of doing so because she has gone insane. And the only way for her to cope with her current reality is to imagine horrific things. The other theory about her dad that I have is that her dad was probably shanked in the street, and that's why she's also a bit disturbed, because that's how the dwarf dies, and that's the only thing I can think of. I'm not really sure about that. What I'm saying is, give this movie a chance and look a little bit under the curtain, and don't be one of those fucktards that goes, the most disturbing anime I've ever seen, it's so mean, ah! All of you that did that, just, it's popular on TikTok, guys, let's have a look at it now. I have to amp up my reactions for the camera. I can't believe what I'm seeing. I've never watched anime before. Anyway. Thanks for watching, I guess. I don't know. I just had to get this off my chest and rant about it because it really pissed me off. Anyway, yeah, but if you enjoyed this, let me know. Not that anybody's going to watch this, but yeah, if you want to support what I do or buy some of my artwork, because I do draw as well, there's a Ko-fi link in the description with all the other links for Instagrams and Twitters and podcasts. Dude, I've got a podcast every week. Please go listen to that. And yeah. Thanks for watching. And I'll see you all when I see you all. Again, if the Ko-fi support thing happens, I might be able to make more videos. For now, it's just a matter of time, I guess. We'll see.